But welcome, Tammy. Welcome everybody who's watching. Tammy, for you guys, is our co-host today. Tammy is a plant-empowered coaching program graduate, and she's also the creator of the website and blog marriedandnaked.com. And this is a blog, and I'll let her tell you more about it, but she's a relationship expert. And so we are so incredibly grateful to have her here. We've got Jean. Hi, Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Yes, I talked to Jean the other day. I'm so glad you made it. All right. Tammy, do you want to just give a brief description of your blog and you're a speaker too? You're really getting yourself out there these days.
Well, just essentially my blog started because my husband and I had gone through a really rough patch in our marriage. And after I decided to kind of fight for my marriage, I wasn't quite ready to give up. We had this 1.5 years of transition where we really discovered these keys that transformed our marriage. And I thought at the end of that 1.5 years, oh my gosh, if other people knew about these things, maybe it could help other marriages too. So that's what led me to starting a blog. I always wanted to be a writer, and I kind of finally found something to write about. So I started Married and Naked, and essentially it's me sharing my own personal stories, the lessons that I've learned in my own marriage, and through that hoping to help other marriages, with the same lessons that I've learned.
Awesome. I love it. And your advice and the suggestions that you have, everything is so thoughtful and so applicable. Like they're things that we can put to use, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So you guys, first of all, stay tuned to the end. I'm going to be giving a very special offer for some free one-on-one coaching. So don't miss out on that. I'll be talking more about that at the end. But today, and Alyssa's here, another graduate. I love our plant-empowered family. It's like everyone shows up and supports one another. It's fantastic.
Yes.
So Leslie was on, Chad is a friend of mine. Oh, I just love it. But today we're talking about the secret to igniting authentic sexual intimacy. So a few weeks ago or a month ago or something like that, we did one on more the emotional intimacy. Mm-hmm. And so we said, okay, we got to get Tammy back because we want to talk sex, right? So let's talk about sex. And if you guys know me, I'm really all about breaking taboos. And I told Tammy, I'm like, you know what? Let's just shoot from the heart, let's just get it out there. And money has taboos, sex has taboos. There are all these taboos that make people nervous about talking. And I just want to kind of put those aside. And we're all human. We all struggle with our own challenges. And so many of us have the same challenges that once we start talking about them, then we all of a sudden are able to relate to other people who have the same challenges, and also people that have overcome those challenges who can help us. So with that being said, we're going to talk about 3 major ways. And I do want to first of all say, we're going to get into some really fun things. So if you've been to these Facebook Lives before, we do a lot of deep work, right? And really the basis for everything is about really developing a sense of unconditional self-love. So that is the basis. Without that, really nothing else is going to come for you. So, and everything I teach is all about self-love and how to get there and how to use that to make conscious and mindful choices about how you eat and how you exercise and really how you operate. So we're not going to talk about that so much today. Just know that that's a foundation. So let's get into the fun stuff. So let's go with way number 1, and that is sexy thoughts. Can you tell us more about that, Tammy?
Well, I'm being very general when I say this, but generally men tend to find arousal much easier than women. Oftentimes, the thought of sex, man, turned on or seeing, their spouse or their significant other crossing the room and they're suddenly ready to go. For women, arousal tends to be more complicated. And it often is connected to a woman's environment as well as her emotion. So for women, our arousal tends to stem from our head. The mind becomes the most important player when it comes to being ready for sex and enjoying sex. If you have a lot on your mind, or you're worried or distracted, all of a sudden the thought of sex, well, just forget it. It's just not going to happen. There's too much going on. So what, for me, taking care of myself mentally has really become an important factor for me, taking time and to enjoying sex. And it's clear that when I have a lot going on in my head, when I am really stressed out, there is nothing fun going to be happening in that bedroom. It is going to be sleep, and that's it. So because I value a healthy sex life, that's something that's very important to me. It's really taught me to be proactive when it comes to sex. And for me, that means figuring out some strategies that help me relax my thoughts and get in the right mindset. And for me, it looks like making sure my kids are taken care of. They're off to bed, the doors are locked, all of that has to be out of my brain. I, like to have nice lighting, I like to light the candles, and I play a playlist that I made, a romantic playlist, and I've learned to take deep breaths. Sometimes that means watching something sexy. So it's like a quick transition for my brain to getting to the right spot. So I think really getting to know yourself and what works for you, and understanding that, especially for women, like understanding that it is more of a mind game for us. It doesn't come as easy. So I think that we have to respect that about ourselves and be okay with it, but find strategies to help you really make that transition when it's time for, intimacy with your partner.
Yeah, and I think so many women kind of think that they're alone in the fact that they're not in the mindset, and it becomes some shameful.
Absolutely.
And that just obviously perpetuates the problem.
Not wanting. Yep.
Right. So I think, one of the tools that we use in the Plan Power coaching program that helps with everything, but this is a good example, is the self-empowerment coaching system. And really you're talking about, Tammy, getting in control of your thoughts, to be able to change your thoughts. And, kind of rework where you're at in your brain so that you can move forward in a different way, maybe change directions. And in the self-empowerment coaching system, we really work on observing as the first step, observing our thoughts. So if our thoughts are, oh, but what about my kids? Or, I forgot to wash the dishes, or whatever it is that is not going to be helpful. First of all, being aware of those, knowing that it's okay to have those thoughts, but they're going to not help us feel sexy or feel. So to then be able to kind of switch those, or do what we need to do to be able to switch those. But the awareness comes first, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something that I used to, for my husband and I, we often struggled about sex. And one of the things was he didn't understand, and I don't think I did really, that, well, why can't you just think something sexy and be ready to go? Because that works for him. But for me, it's way more complicated than that. I have a very complicated system going up in here. And for me to feel turned on and ready, there's a whole list of things I kind of need to go through. So it was helping him understand that about myself. And before that, obviously getting to know that about me and being okay with that, and not thinking something's wrong with me because I couldn't flip the switch that quickly.
Yes. So communication with your partner comes into play here.
Without a doubt.
Big time. So and I think there's a huge lack of communication within partnerships, and especially when it comes to sex. Do you have any tips for people being able to explain that? Like maybe they've never really voiced that to their partner before, and they've just kind of sucked it up and tried to go with it or whatever. Do you have any thoughts about here's how I can approach that and help him understand in a way that's going to benefit us both moving forward?
I think that, something to always consider when talking to your spouse or your partner is to think about how to do it in a way that's not critical. First, you have to get a grip on it yourself. You have to have a clear understanding. And sometimes that just means talking it out, with the person or your partner over and over and over. And really, I've been married 20 years, and it is just, I don't know that we'll ever find, the perfect way, and that's okay. It's a journey, and I'm learning that now, but we've been through such ups and downs and all over the place when it comes to sex. And really, it just came to us talking over and over and over and over about it. And the more we talked about it, the more I would realize things and he would realize, and then we'd kind of have a switch. And then, so just talking about it, and I know that that's what we're going to approach next, but also considering how you do it, and that always be respectful and not approach it from a place of criticism, because that's not going to serve anything. So finding a positive way to approach things, you know, is very important. Like, you know, I really like it when you take it up to, you know, you go light a candle for us. That really helps me relax. You know, maybe we can work on doing some of that more, you know, just finding out that positive spin on things so it doesn't feel critical.
Yes, and I totally jumped the gun on
No,
the way number
right.
2.
It's so important.
Yeah, which is, well, it just kind of led up to it, I guess. And you called it dirty talk.
Right.
And is that kind of where you were, what you were going for with that point?
Yes. The thing is, sex is very personal, right? It is like the most personal thing to us. It's probably the most personal and maybe uncomfortable thing for many of us to talk about or broach the subject. But what I truly believe is that the path to a turbocharged sex life is really learning to talk about sex and talking about it as often as possible. Because what works for my husband, as we were saying, doesn't necessarily work for me. And what works for me, my husband might think, oh my gosh, that is so unnecessary. I don't need the candles or the music and all that. So in order to really understand that about each other, we have to open up those lines of communication and really have to be transparent, you know, and talk about, you know, what turns you on, what turns us on, what we like and don't like, what feels good and doesn't feel good. And it really comes down to being willing to brave the uncomfortable and stepping into that space that's hard to do sometimes. And really, I've told you, the more that my husband and I did that, the more we braved it, the more we talk about it, the better and better and better it gets. And that's honestly the truth. It just gets better and better. So one thing is, for me, I am shy. I'm very shy. I grew up in a family that didn't talk about sex. So broaching those subjects is not easy for me, and it never has been. And it's been a long time coming to where I can actually, here I am talking with you about it, which is nuts. But my husband, he grew up in a house where, I mean, everything was out on the table. So for me, I have to find different strategies that kind of help me feel comfortable in talking about things. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that I did that was I started looking up sexy like conversation starters, date night questions. And actually, if you go to Google and type in sexy date night questions, you'll see a printable that I did with all these date night questions. And what those do is, it really is a fun way to broach challenging topics. It kind of opens up to talking about sex. Like, you know, I ask things like asking your partner, you know, what's your favorite position? Or what's your favorite sexual memory of us together? Or what's your favorite place to be kissed? You know, that's kind of a fun way. And that often leads to, you know, a whole other conversation, and it just kind of opens doors. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's a really easy way to kind of break that barrier and being willing to step into the uncomfortable a bit.
Got it. And I'm going to get a little personal here too. So before, from the majority of my adult life, and the reason I put in the title of this authentic intimacy is because that authenticity is so key. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, if we can't be authentic in our everyday lives, how are we going to be authentic in a way that's going to lead to true intimacy as well, mm-hmm. Sexual intimacy as well? And I think for me, for the large majority of my life, the lack of self-worth that I had, you know, wasn't allowing me to be authentic because I was shameful about things about myself. And when I let that go, when I've, you know, kind of had the transformation I had over the last 3 years, I mean, it's like I'm in a different world, and sex included. It's mm-hmm. like all of a sudden I can talk about what I like without, you know, it was like I thought I knew what I liked, but it was more like I was putting on a show. Like, this is what I should do, or this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what he likes, so that's what I'm supposed to do, mm-hmm. you know? And I think that, but eventually that will only work for so long, right? And do you think that that's one of the reasons why I mean, you're saying your sex life just keeps getting better with time. For so many people, it's the opposite. What are your thoughts about that, and if that has anything to do with the authenticity thing, or if there's other things?
You know, that's a really interesting question, because it's really, you know, easy for me to say, yeah, my sex life just keeps getting better and better. But the truth is, we went through some very difficult times when I feel like only the last few years have we really started to rise above, and we fought about sex, I mean, for years and years and years. And so I think for us, what happened was, because of the differences between us, my husband being, you know, easy to it, me being more complicated, we tended to judge and evaluate those differences. Like, and I started to feel very shameful. You talked about that. Like, there's something very wrong with me that I can't be what he wants me to be. Why can't I do that? Everybody should be able to do that. And the more and more and more that went on, the more and more we thought about it, the, you know, more horrific, you know, our sex life became. And it was really, you know, I don't think you can just suddenly develop a fantastic sex life. I think what happened for us is we started working on all this other stuff, acceptance of each other and accountability, and, you know, really working hard at our communication. And once we kind of found our way back to that strong foundation, then sex started to, you know, skyrocket for us again. Then we started to feel like we could break down those barriers, and we learned how, I've learned how to not be, you know, shameful of what works for me. And he's learned how to, you know, adjust his strategy so that it's not, you know, unintentionally inflicting that shame. You know, it was never intentional, but right. I always took it personally like that, you know. So I think that that might play a factor in a lot of people's lives. And if you don't find that way to kind of rebuild from ground up, it's certainly not going to transfer into a healthy sex life.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I just had a thought, it's a little off topic, but before we get to the third way to ignite intimacy, it just occurred to me, you know, one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet is just our thoughts about our own bodies. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think about all the tools that we teach and learn and practice in the Plant Empowered Coaching Program, how they help us make decisions that are going to help us lose extra body fat, you know, really get to a place where we're making decisions out of self-love. And I think when it comes to loving yourself unconditionally, we have to extend that to our bodies as well when it comes to sex. And just to also know that, you know, loving and accepting and respecting our bodies as they are now is also a prerequisite for changing them. So we've got these two great effects of loving ourselves and our bodies just as they are. Number one is that we can be free. We can get out of that place of shame, body shaming, you know, get out of that headspace of I'm only as good as my body looks. Mm-hmm. Kind of thing that so many of us women. Oh, we've got Stephanie. Sorry, I didn't mention you, Stephanie. Stephanie, our head mindset coach in the program.
Hi.
She's fantastic. So anyway, so there's that, and then there's the, you know, that being a prerequisite for making good decisions for yourself. So I think that extends way beyond food and fitness. It goes into sex as well, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, body is such a, how you see yourself is such a huge player in your ability to relax and enjoy sex yourself, to relax and enjoy somebody else. And I've heard story after story of friends that it's just this big, huge barrier in allowing their sex life to flourish. And I think that that is one thing that's so beautiful about this program, is learning how to love your body, you know, unconditionally, regardless, so that it'll carry over into every area of your life. Certainly into sex, you have to have a sense of, you know, acceptance and love for yourself in order to really relax and enjoy it and be in the moment, rather than thinking, oh, my belly looks like this, or what is he thinking, or what, you know, you've got to be able to love yourself and kind of sit in that moment.
Yeah, big one. Good. All right, last way is passionate play. Tell us about that, Tammy.
Okay, well, I told you that my husband and I used to fight a lot about sex. That was, for a long time, our number one argument recurring. We really struggled to find that common ground. And the more we fought about it, like I said, the harder it became for me to find the desire for it. Because we said arousal starts for women, often it starts right here, right? So your brain has to kind of be in that right space. So one of the things that helped for us is really finding moments where we could lighten things up, to not take everything so seriously. And one of the ways we did this was really by incorporating just a lot of adventure and play and letting loose, you know, in the bedroom. We talked about arousal starting with your brain. And I think that is one of the reasons why play is so important for women, especially because it really shows you, you can shut out everything else. You can really just kind of let go of what's hanging you up or what you're thinking about over and over and over. And it just makes getting turned on so much easier if you can just let that go and kind of sit in some fun. And so some of the ways my husband and I do this is we tried incorporating like new positions or places, which sometimes is just funny. You know, it's just fun, and that's okay. There doesn't have to be some kind of specific outcome. That's one of the things I think is really important, and was important for me, was letting go of it having to be a certain outcome. It doesn't have to be anything specific. There's no rules to it. So that was a big player for me, is kind of letting that go. And then we've also learned to do things like incorporate, like take normal games and make them sexy games. Like our favorite that we take with us every time we go to a vacation together is we'll play strip blackjack. So we turn blackjack into a whole fun, awesome game that we both really look forward to. We've done things on our date nights at home, like kissing games. And it's fun for him, but really it's so important for me, because it really helps me just like, I switch. I'm just focused and there and feeling light and ready in the moment with him. You know what I mean? So those have been really good. And then another thing, I mean, if we're really going to go there and be honest and open, and it's, you know, something that I think is important to do. And we talked about, okay, we're breaking taboos of things we don't talk about. Yes. So I will talk about that. The fact that we talked about how my desire level went down significantly because we're, you know, arguing about it so much. And one thing that was good for me was to start incorporating and trying out some toys. And that really made a huge difference for us, because it made it light and fun. It took the pressure off. And so that's been something that's really taken us to a whole new level too, of really true intimacy. Yeah.
Got it. Oh, that's so cool. And I love this. Okay. Strip blackjack.
Yes.
So I have to ask, so when you lose a hand, do you take off maniacal clothing?
Yeah. So what we do is we'll place like we set like a bet. Usually it means, you know, one of us will get, let's say some kind of fantasy or something out of it if we win. Then we leave the room, we put on 10 items of clothing, and sometimes we'll make it really funny, like silly things. And then we play blackjack. And then of course, if you lose a hand, you lose a piece of clothing. And then we do fun things like, okay, well if you lose a hand, then you've got to kind of strut the walkway in your form of undress, however it may be. We kind of put these little rules around it that, you know, just make it fun. It's just really fun.
Oh, it's so cool. I really love that. And, you know, one of, as you know, Tammy, and everybody who's done the program knows, play life like a game is one of my favorite mantras. That really helped me. I said that mantra to myself for a year straight, every single day, to really get out of my own head and to start to take some deep breaths and see life as an adventure, you know, and not so stressed and anxious all the time. And so this is definitely in line with that. And I love that you guys, just make it up and make it fun. And it sounds fantastic. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. Yes, I can't believe that you're here talking about this so openly.
I can't even believe I said those things out loud, but the truth is, it's so important, because I think so many of us just sit in our own thoughts and we wonder, you know, is this normal, or is this okay, or should I be embarrassed or ashamed? And that what I feel like is, if you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, if you guys are both willing and, you know, interested in some, I say go for it. Try things, you know, experiment, have fun. And it doesn't have to be taboo, you know. Certainly in your own relationship, you know, everything's off the table. Whatever it is you're comfortable with, I say go for it. And the more we can talk about it openly and like this, the more people can feel like, okay, this is like normal. I should try this. Maybe it will help, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Oh, well, we did good with the time. We are going to start to wrap things up, you guys. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've got some free one-on-one coaching available to you guys right now. I am actually doing these calls, we call them breakthrough calls. You know, one of the things that we talked about today, you know, we talked about a lot of fun stuff, but then that foundation that we need to be able to get to the fun stuff has everything to do with being able to get to a place of true self-love, of self-worth, of caring so much about yourself and your health that you're able to consistently and constantly make decisions that are going to serve you best now and for the rest of your life. And it's like all the knowledge in the world, there is plenty of knowledge, and most of you guys have enough of it, you know, to be able to make those choices, but we self-sabotage when we're not in a place of self-love. And that self-sabotage is the root problem. Well, the shame and the lack of self-love is the root problem, but it comes out as self-sabotage, and we're eating things that we know are not serving us, even when we're trying to, and then we're saying, I don't know what's wrong, I need another meal plan, I need another workout plan, and it really isn't about that. So we call those Band-Aids for those of us who need something deeper and more comprehensive. So if that sparks your interest, and we've got Leslie here, Leslie went through the program as well. We've got such a family, you guys. It's such a family in this program. But you know, on these calls, we really explore. We explore where you're at, and you know what the root of what you're struggling with is. And from there, we can know where you want to get to, what that vision of success looks like. If the program turns out to be a good fit, then I'll tell you about it, and we can talk about that. If not, no worries, we will point you in a different direction that'll serve you better. So there's really nothing to lose, and gosh, life is just so freaking short, you guys. You know, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again, getting different results. And most of us have been through diet plan after diet plan after diet plan, usually ending up worse off than we were before. So it's time to try something different. I mean, we turn every other program upside down on its head. We do it different, and it's a way that works, and it works for a lifetime. So if that interests you, the time is now, you guys. Book a session. I'm going to put the link right here in the post in the comments. So check out for that. If you have any questions, get in touch. Tammy's also available. If you have any questions for her, we can reach out to her as well. And I thank you all for being here with us. And thank you so much, Tammy. I really appreciate it. Great stuff. Like Leslie just said, great stuff.
Thank you.
All right. And you'll be back, right?
Yes, I'd love to.
Okay. We'll have you back. All right. Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.